Welcome into Black and Gold Insider. This is the show where we get to know the Black and Gold a little bit better, and it's all about the newest member of LAFC, Heung-Min. It is official. He is Black and Gold, and we welcome in a friend of the show, John Thorrington, co-president and general manager. And it's got to be some sweet relief, John. I imagine weeks, months, years into getting this moment to happen. Now, as you can reflect, how have you seen that path?
Sweet relief's a good way of putting it, Max. It's been a long journey, particularly if you think about the first time, sort of the conception of this idea of ever having Son, and for quite a while it felt like an impossibility given his what he was doing in his career and what have you. But we saw the opportunity with what was going on at Spurs and in his own personal situation. And I had been in touch with his agent for years and finally got the chance to sit down with him in the middle of June. And, I think Sonny said something today along the lines of it wasn't his first choice, which I could sense these proud Angelinos and LAFC fans like, whoa. I think that could be misinterpreted and it'll be interpreted wrongly if that's where it stopped. I think a better way of putting it was, it wasn't his first choice because he wasn't informed. And so my job then was to inform him of what the opportunity was, what have you. But from that moment, I knew there was a chance. And there have been moments where my hopes dimmed a little bit. But thanks to a lot of hard work from our incredible staff, as well as the willingness of owners to really go the extra mile to make sure that we took advantage of this opportunity to bring Sonny here, was certainly instrumental. But I do have to say the critical part of us being here today was Sonny's conviction after that call to say, that's where I want to be. And without that, we're not here. Obviously you had a club that didn't want him to leave necessarily given his legendary status at the club. But you did have a club that was willing to be fair with a player that Sonny deserved the ability to sort of say, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And that didn't necessarily mean it was easy, but we got there in the end.
I'm not going to let you off the hook, John, or deflect this, because he did say that. And when he said that, there was a gasp in the ballroom at the field club when he said that. And I understand it. And it's nice that you cleared that all up. But the reality remains, he said it, and the conversation he had with you changed his mind. And I know you're saying, well, I'm explaining it, but there's a lot more to this. I mean, you deserve a lot of credit for that. So what were those things that helped change his mind, do you think?
I think, I said it in the press conference. I just count myself very fortunate and privileged that, in a sense, I'm a salesman. My job is to recruit players, staff, and get the right people here to then do an amazing job, which they all do. I think the privilege I have is that I'm not selling snake oil. And I think I can be honest about who we are as a club. I think at the beginning it was selling a dream. So that conversation with Carlos was different from this one. But I think people probably can sense how passionate I am about this club and how much I believe in it. And I think that is what translates well when you're on the receiving end of that, is to say, wow, now I can get a better sense as to what LAFC is. And prior to that conversation, I think Sonny, it was on his mind. And I think it was my job then to just be open and say, this is who we are. This is why we think this will be great. Does it match with what you want to do? And thankfully, I think as we got through that conversation, I think light bulbs started to go off and he started to open his mind to it. He recalled being here a number of years ago with Spurs. He's very close with Ugo. And I invited him to, I said, look, I can say from my perspective how amazing it is and how jealous I am that I'm not an LAFC player, nor was I ever. But Ugo can give a different perspective. And I don't think he would say anything all that different, but he comes at it from a different angle because Ugo's now playing here. He knows Sonny better. He knows what Sonny would be interested in. And I think, the last piece, which is the other benefit when I am selling LAFC is players want to win. And so I think Sonny being here and choosing LAFC is a reflection of what we've all built together. But what is so exciting is now the potential of what we're building upon and the exciting future to come.
So yeah, you used all your resources, including Hugo Lloris, who came through and had that. But just getting this over the tape, without getting into how the sausages are made per se, but how challenging was it? And was there a moment where you felt that maybe it wouldn't come to the moment where we all saw when he was introduced?
Yeah, I mean, look, Max, you and I are both very happily married men, but when you think of the work it takes to go and get the hottest girl in the bar, it takes work. And he was no different. And you have a club that loves him. I mean, Sonny is an absolute legend at Spurs. And interestingly, just as an aside, this wasn't intentional, but this Tottenham captain, Tottenham legend to LAFC trend is amazing. And actually, in this case, was helpful because we did have Hugo. But for that reason, it does take a lot of work, and it does take a really appealing proposition to attract the player. And I think that's where we were all hands on deck. Again, nothing disingenuous, but explaining what we are, who we are, and also then finding a club that ended up being reasonable about where things stood and understanding that this was what Sonny wanted to do with the next step of his career. But it took a lot of hard work, and Sonny was not short of options. And so we were always hopeful. I really felt like we connected well, and he really, you sense when people get it, and he really understood LAFC. There was an opportunity for him to meet directly with owners as well. And then in all of this, obviously his representation plays a key role as well. And it was a real partnership once they also saw the potential of this opportunity for Sonny.
John, you make it sound so easy, but you think of all these branches coming together, and truly remarkable. And again, we're so honored to have you with this club and being able to get this. By the way, does this mean more relationship with Tottenham Hotspur? I mean, is the synergy feels really good right now?
Let me just say that we've gotten to know each other really well over these last few weeks. And when you're negotiating, that's not always necessarily the friendliest of conversations. But in all seriousness, they were great. We ended up finding a reason that the right solution for them and for us. And we always try to negotiate win-wins, and I think we did in this case for us, for Tottenham, and for the player.
Well, I know here on our YouTube and Facebook channels, we get a lot of comments. Take care of Sonny. It's from the Korean community. It's also from the Tottenham Hotspur fan base, which we welcome here to enjoy Sonny while he's here in Los Angeles with the club. What about this player? I mean, so many people have seen him, and he is breathtaking as a talent. You've had a chance, obviously, to speak with him and talk with him. I did an interview with him, and it felt like I was in a bar talking to my best friend. It was just so easy and disarming. What has stood out about on the field, and then let us know about the player off the field that makes this guy a little different, a cut above?
Yeah, I'll start with on the field, which I probably have to spend less time on because I think that's what is the most obvious, because we've all seen it for a number of years. But his productivity, his ability to create goals, to score goals, to score different types of goals, his physicality, his energy, his explosiveness is something that is immediately eye-catching. And I vividly remember watching him in person in a Tottenham Arsenal derby in November of 2016. And I was sitting there, and I knew who he was and what have you. And I happened to have seats really close to the pitch, and he made a turn and left a center back for dead. And I just was like, whoa, that was explosiveness that is just not normal. And then you combine that with his work rate, his finishing ability, and his versatility. I mean, where he can play and how he plays, how he makes others better. That's just something that I'm really excited for. And I think you get players. I do think that it is important of what players can do individually, but I also think you have to then think when you're using DPs and the limited ammunition you have at this level is, can that player make others better? And I think that is definitely something that we will see. And that takes me a little bit more a segue into what he is off the field. And you mentioned it yourself, this disarming character. And he does have this paradoxical combination of easy charm, humility, and grace, coupled with this stardom that maybe you, but certainly not me, have any appreciation for, as to how big a guy. I mean, this guy is a global icon, and of course in Korea, but it transcends. You walk around London, you walk around, I mean, even other countries in Asia, and I think for us to now bring that here, and a player who combines that like ambition and fierce hunger to win, but with a class and a humility, is something that he embodies, that I really, we as an organization also strive to really reflect in our values and how we go about our business.
Back to on the field, how do you see him going in with this squad? I mean, you are a keen observer of this club. You don't miss a drop of LAFC games. And obviously talking with Steve Cherundolo, but with the team that you have in place, how do you see him fitting in? And talking about the mentorship aspects, which he's already openly said is something that lured him into this new adventure.
Yeah, I think positionally I'll touch on, but ultimately obviously is dependent on the player, coach, and that decision is not with me. I think what is really exciting about Sonny in particular is his versatility. I think we've seen he's played across positions in the front three, and even elsewhere at times in a pinch. He's just such a fantastically gifted footballer, also with amazing physicality. So for me, I think it's an awesome puzzle that I'm going to give the coaches, and we've given the coaches now to figure out how he then combines with Denis, with David, with Nathan. Jeremy unfortunately just went down with an injury, but hopefully that's not he's not out for too long. But this really exciting and dynamic attack that he will certainly strengthen.
Obviously a reflection of a player that almost he could go into any 11 and be exceptional. Mm-hmm. You touched on his impact, and I love what you said about Asia, because I think sometimes you lump in these players, but his appreciation for what he's done for the continent is obviously there. And you've spent some time in Korea, and we know with the Korean community here. Can you gauge how big of a phenomenon that will be, and what it means for LAFC, for folks in Korea who religiously watch him when he's at Tottenham Hotspur and now pivot to follow this player at his new club?
I think I could do my best to wrap my head around it, but I still have a real sense that we don't yet know how big this guy is. And as we were hammering out this deal, there was an opportunity, a slight one, and I was trying to get to Korea for the game. I ended up not being able to go to the game, but the scenes that you see in Seoul for his farewell match that have gone global and viral and all whatever terms the cooler social media kids use, but it is mind-blowing, the level of iconic status this guy has. And I spent a lot of time in London. We did the deal with Ugo, and I was at a Spurs match at Sonny play. But I think we have these incredibly lofty expectations as to how big this is, and I have a strong suspicion it'll be bigger than we can imagine.
How soon do you think the introduction, and we know these things take time, but how soon do you think the introduction to the team will take place, and before we see him playing for the badge?
So in terms of introduction, I don't think this is your question, but he was here last night, got to know some of the guys. He's going from this press conference straight to our training center to stretch and do what he wants. I mean, he's just an amazing, amazing pro. And I think Saturday will likely be too tight a timeline with his immigration process to get him registered. It's not impossible. So until we hear no, we will run hard to try to enlist all the help we can to get it done, because obviously the sooner we can get him out there, the sooner we all benefit. So we will definitely charge hard for as soon as possible. If we miss this weekend, then I would be confident that the next match he'll be available.
Good. And there's a good little run of home games where I know the folks here will be able to see. Locally, with the Korean community, and we know there's so many communities here within Los Angeles that gravitate towards the club. How do you think those relationships? We saw the councilman, a lot of folks that represent that Korean public. How do you think the club changes or adjusts a bit to become a club for that community as much as it is for so many others in Los Angeles, as it is already?
Yeah, I think you make a good point there. There is already a Korean fan base with the Tigers here that Sonny met in his last visit to LA. And I think it's been clear from day one that it's an intentional part of our decision-making to really be representative of all of the great communities that make up Los Angeles. And Korea is certainly a big part of that. And that's not lost on us. And so for us, when we think about the makeup of our team and representing Los Angeles, one of those things is its diversity. And I'm really proud of the fact that at the Club World Cup, we had more nationalities. We were the most diverse team in the whole tournament. And that is something that doesn't happen by accident. And in this particular case, whenever we have an opportunity, and Sonny is rare in his reach, but when we have an opportunity to bring a player who really aligns with our values, that'll bring us what we want to do in terms of our success on the pitch, but enables that deep connection with our community, that is exactly right in the bullseye of what we're trying to do at LAFC.
This is obviously huge for Los Angeles and Los Angeles Football Club, John, but just from the Major League Soccer perspective, they benefit greatly from this. How do you see this phenomenon based on what we've seen with Lionel Messi and where the league is going? What does this mean for the business of Major League Soccer and the customers that exist and the customers that the league looks to bring in?
Yeah, I think we've seen the Messi impact on our league, which has been amazing. And we really credit Miami for doing what they've done. And I know our ownership and our executive teams are very close in terms of how we as clubs alongside the partners and other teams can really help drive the league forward. And, you know, without making individual comparisons of Son, Messi, but you were here today, Max. I mean, the level of interest in this player is unlike anything I've seen I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. And I think for us, it does introduce us to some new fans as well. And I think I had just a quick anecdote. One of the journalists who was here today came to the match for the first time last night against Tigres. And he was like, wow. And we always say, just come once to LA, just come once. And that's what's starting to happen more and more. And I think the impact on the field will be incredible. We've discussed that. But I think the impact off the field, which will benefit the league and just the sport now. And you think you have this captain of a World Cup, team in the build up to a tournament here in the States next time. It's just going to be, I think, a really big leap forward in terms of us as a club. And then, maybe less directly, but certainly influential in terms of an impact across the league.
I didn't even get to bring up the World Cup, which you just did so eloquently there. But I just know it's mind blowing to think of all the other things that we're going to gather for the World Cup, and we're going to see this prominent player, as we saw with Carlos Vela in 2018, representing his country at a huge level and also representing this club. That sunk in too. I mean, it's a huge list. I'm losing digits on my hands.
Yeah, this is so multifaceted in terms of how, amazing this is. And you sensed a real celebration today. And not just from LAFC, the player, you could see this real excitement in his eyes and in his voice when he is just so excited to be here. He was here last night, and I just think this will be an amazing fit.
John, we appreciate you as always for joining the show. And we appreciate for all the work you've done to create this, help create this amazing new chapter. We look forward to seeing where Son Heung-Min goes and when he starts on the field for the next time here with the Black and Gold.
Thank you, Max. Always a pleasure to be here, and always worth mentioning we do this all together.
Yes, sir. Best in the business, even though he deflects to all of us, but he's a good dude. John Thorrington, General Manager, Co-President of LAFC. Thanks for joining us here on Black and Gold Insider. We're here every week to get to know everyone with the club. Until we meet again, this is Max Bretos saying, let's go Black and Gold.